Hi, my name is Karl Lehmann. I'm the author of Dream It, Plan It, Live It, and I'm joined today by the gentleman that is known as Tom Murphy. Say hello, Tom.
Hello, Tom. Uh, Thank you, Carl. Appreciate you having me on today.
You're very welcome, very welcome. Glad to have you on. So anybody who's been following the Coffee with Carl series, this is something that I've been running since just before lockdown version 1.0. And it's about actually interviewing thought leaders. Some people have been Olympic champions, some people have been world champions, but today I'm joined by somebody who's been introduced to me by one of our previous speakers. Now, Tom is a mentor who works with ambitious professionals and business owners, and he works with them to help them improve their kind of mindset, increase their success and their life balance. And today we've got this theme that we're going to be talking about, which is achieving success without burning out. Now, that's a big claim to have there, isn't it, Tom? So tell us a little bit more about yourself as a precursor, as an intro, so people get a feel as to kind of who you are, what you do and why you do what you do.
Sure. Thank you, Carl. Well, really, the nuts and bolts of it are that I've owned the 6-bedroom house with the swimming pool and the lovely home with a lovely wife and 2 amazing children. I've set up 7 businesses in my time. I set my target to retire. I said I'd be a millionaire by 30 and retire by 40, and I achieved all of that and that. But you know what, mate? I wasn't happy. Right. And I burnt out and I made loads of mistakes, and there's no regrets, because I believe regrets are typically mistakes we don't learn from. But if I had my time again, sure, I'd make different choices. And I think largely I've just learned how to actually understand what gives us daily fulfillment and what makes us happy. And if we're happy at home, we're happy in business. We're happy in business, we're happy at home. So I'm fortunate enough now I've got businesses that are run by people who've got invested interest. So I'm fortunate, but I've worked hard for that. And I'm in a position now where I enjoy working with a select few people at a time. I don't like working with too many people at a time, just people that are committed to either just improving who they are, finding what actually their purpose is, or just doing better in business. Because I've been in business a lot in various parts of the world, and don't get me wrong, there's been a lot of failures. There's been a lot of times when we've done things wrong, but there's been a lot of success as well. And so I have that to help people, do well in business. People say to me, "Am I a business mentor? Am I a life coach? And what am I?" And it's really hard to articulate that, because I typically just help people achieve what they're trying to achieve. And if it's in business, largely I need to understand what the parameters of their life are, because usually there are other factors surrounding why they're not being as successful. And the big part of it is why bother trying to be successful, or why bother having an end game if we don't enjoy the journey? Right. And that's really my purpose now, is helping people understand, well, is that goal right for you? Is that genuinely what you want to achieve? And what does life look like at the other side of that? But then how can we enjoy getting there? Because if you get to the end of it and it's not actually what you wanted and you haven't enjoyed that time, it's a lose-lose situation, really. And so that's what I enjoy doing now, mate. And I get so much satisfaction out of it.
So who do you work primarily with?
It's been an array of people. I mean, I've only been doing it formally under the banner of Life According to Murph for not even 12 months. It's right. 10, 11 months. It was just before lockdown I decided to do it. Several people asked me to mentor them. Yeah. It's been young entrepreneurs. It's been people that are, funnily enough, several business coaches I've mentored. This year it's been tough for a lot of people. So, having them understand like how to actually generate more business in a market where people don't want to be sold to. So there's been, I think the oldest person I've dealt with is probably about 62, 63. And then the youngest, 21, 22. A lot of people I find want to achieve something and like the idea of either a better life or a better version of themselves. Yeah. Or more money or a bigger house or whatever, but they actually don't want to work for it. You know, they see the top of the mountain and they don't care how they're going to get there. They just want to get there. But then actually, when I get them on that path, it can be a bit. I suppose it's like a PT, a personal trainer, and it might be the same for your work as well, Carl, where you're so committed to helping people achieve their life goals, and then when they don't turn up to actually, you know, you have those sessions, and in between the sessions, they've not done what you need them to do. You start to question their commitment, and it's a real shame because you can help them get there, but largely they've got to do the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you and I work in a kind of coaching type sort of mentality, which is not necessarily where you have all the answers, but possibly you got all the questions. Because usually people have got it locked in their brain, and you just need to help them sort of find that way through, right? And it's one of those things that I think, you know, often more is said than actually done. You know, when all is said and done, more is said than actually done. A lot of people will, you know, talk the talk, but they're not then prepared to sort of walk the walk. So yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, in terms of anybody who works with us, you know, we're fully committed to helping them achieve everything that they want to do, but equally we expect them to be, you know, fully committed for themselves as well. And we set them sort of homework, and that's always an interesting sort of insight for me. Those people, I'll give you an example. We were working with, still are working with a lady client down here in Devon, and basically set her the same homework that we did for everybody else. But the difference was when her homework came back, it came back within 24 hours. And when, honestly, I kid you not, the stuff that she sent me back, you know, she'd written like diatribe about absolutely everything that we'd set us up. And I thought, is this person engaged? Hell yes. Does she want this, you know, sort of end achievement? Absolutely. And then for that, you know, we can really work with people like that. Whereas, you know, if you're working with somebody, you have to shivvy them up and chase them up and all the rest of it. One asks the question, you know, how serious they are about their own development, I guess, really. But in terms of success, I mean, you work with people in terms of achieving success, and you mentioned this at the beginning there. So, you know, success can mean different things. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, success can mean a lot. It's different to everybody, and I suppose that's why I really need to take the time to understand what what people are trying to achieve. And usually it's really important to find, not usually every time, it's really important to find out why. So why do they want to achieve that success? Why do they feel that's important to them? You know, success could be, like I said, a new house. You know, some people literally grow up just wanting to have kids in a big house, and
Yeah.
that's fine. But you know, how do they know that's going to actually make them feel better? And I think largely a lot of people go through life saying, "I will be happy when." You know, I will be happy when I have this, or I will be happy when I achieve this. I will be happy, and actually, that's not necessarily the right way to go through life. I mean, who am I to say it is or it isn't? But I'm just. This is why I call myself a mentor more so than a coach, because I'm helping people, I suppose, learn from my mistakes. And if I can't empathize with them, I just don't feel like it's authentic. And I think it's really important that I understand what they're going through. I may not have gone exactly what they're going through, but yeah. So success is many things to many people. Largely to me, success is happiness. Success is knowing where you're going, how you're getting there, and what does it look like on the other side. You know, it's just having that, waking up in the morning, every morning, and knowing what your future looks like, and knowing what you're doing today is going to actually get you there step by step.
Right.
Or going to bed feeling fulfilled, feeling like you've achieved something. It doesn't have to be every day, but over an average of 7 days, if you can get that, you know, at least half of the time, you're probably going to be happier than if you didn't.
And you talk about achieving success without burning out. So tell us more about burning out, because obviously I'm just thinking, you know, in this, I'm going to use the phrase that I hate so much, this new normal. And I think we can reframe that better, but you know, in the current normal, let's put it like that. Um, a lot of people I know have struggled. I was one of those. If you rewind the clock back, you know, probably 3 months ago, I just had a spell of 2 weeks where I was just not myself, and it wasn't depression and it wasn't anxiety, but there was just this period of time where I felt like I was swimming in raw sewage. You know, it was just like, you know, what the hell's going on here? I'm going through mud. You know, and you know, part of the process was then to analyze what I was doing, and you know, and I wasn't actually sort of looking after myself well. And the first thing you need to understand as a leader is that you can't help other people unless you look after yourself first. So, you know, screen fatigue, Zoom fatigue, whatever you want to call it, is a real thing. But you know, that's one way of burning out. But obviously there's many different ways of burning out, and I'm just mindful we're starting to get to that kind of critical point, certainly in the mastermind group where I attend. You know, there's probably half the guys there who in the last 4 to 6 weeks are really starting to struggle, you know, because of a myriad of different things. So let's talk about that a little bit more, and how you work with people, and what, you know, what the silver bullets are there to kind of help people with that.
Yeah, sure. So for me, it's like success. There are different versions of burning out.
Okay.
And I think when you say burning out, a lot of people see it as being like having a heart attack or having an emotional breakdown.
Right.
To some people, burning out, and in fact, to a lot of people, probably majority of us, burning out is actually Groundhog Day. You know, like just literally going through life unfulfilled, unhappy, and not really knowing why we do what we do, and how can we change that? Whether it be I'm in a terrible relationship, I'm not in the right job, you know, and it largely, to me, mate, it comes down to who you want to be.
Right.
So I think I made this mistake, you know. My version of success, I'll take it back to one of my companies in Australia. I had 17 staff, and I remember this photo on the riverbank, and you know, here's me in my pinstripe suit, you know, thinking I'm literally the boss, you know, and half of those people were unprofitable. Okay. You know, the business wasn't making profit. The business, I wasn't happy. I was working too many hours to try and generate enough revenue. I wasn't recruiting the right type of people. I wasn't developing the right type of people in the right way. It was that picture. I use that as a perfect example to remind myself from time to time to say, you know, are you doing the right things for you?
Right.
Because we only get one crack at this life. So what's the point in doing something that's not right for you? And so the burnout for me, it could be I had a heart problem in 2018. I had to shut down one of my companies because I was going to bed at 1 a.m. Cleaning out my inbox in the UK. And then I'd wake up at 5:30, 6 a.m. and I'd have 200 emails from the other side of the world. And it was just relentless. And I was networking 5 times a week. And so I literally, you know, I was lucky I was really fit. I was going to the gym 5 times a week. So, you know, the doctors were saying to me, your heart's trying to stop, but you're really fit. So actually, you know, your fitness is saving you. But literally, if you don't stop doing all of this, you're gonna have a heart attack. So I had to just stop. I was dry reaching as I was walking the dog in the morning, like falling over, dizzy, you know, and all of that sort of thing. It just wasn't nice. But that might not happen to everybody. And this is the thing is, you know, everyone's got a different version of burnout.
Right.
But to me, it comes down to who do you want to be? Do you want to be at that pinnacle of whatever it is you're trying to achieve? So do you want to be in that top 2% or the top 5%? Because if you do, that's a massive level of commitment, and that's a massive level of sacrifice.
Right.
I think the biggest mistake people make is they don't match the right level of sacrifice to what's required. So they see where they want to be, or they expect that they're going to be, you know, a multimillionaire, or they're going to be the best accounting firm in the Southwest, or they're going to be the best law firm in Britain, or whatever.
Yes.
But actually, do they want that? Do they want that? And do they understand actually what it takes to do that? And then once you sort of ask yourself that question, okay, and understand what the level of commitment and sacrifice is, let's say a professional footballer. I mean, the amount of sacrifice they make, or even better, an Olympic athlete, 4 years of hardcore sacrifice preparation for one event. Can you imagine doing that in business? Like, you know, that just sounds crazy. You know, but that's what they do. And so that's a level of sacrifice they have to make. And I think it's the same in everything we do. Yeah. Do you want to be good at what you do? Do you want to have a business that makes enough money for you to live a lifestyle you want to live? Great. Okay. So then we can start framing up the foundations of that and what levels of sacrifice you need to make to do that. But I think largely a lot of people don't really have that conversation with themselves to say, this is truly who I want to be for these reasons, and this is what I need to do to get there. It sounds basic, doesn't it, really? And it's not rocket science, Carl, but it's, unfortunately, I do think majority of us just don't understand that, or don't take the time to understand that. It's not hard to understand. It's just being true to yourself. And I do think that's why a good coach with empathy, or a good mentor with empathy, can really help someone. And it's going to take a commitment of between 3 to 10 sessions to achieve it, but it will get you there if you are truly committed. And I get a lot of people sign up for 3 or 5 sessions that do a couple, and then it's just too hard for them.
Right.
You know, they're not committed. They like the idea of changing, but actually, it's just too hard.
You have to get out of your comfort zone, don't you? It's not easy.
To an extent, yeah, absolutely. But you know, it's silly. Like, I don't know if you've seen some of my videos, but there was a video I put on LinkedIn and Instagram last month, and I put this chart up, and it was a rectangle chart with a series of dots. Loads of dots, and there was a band of one color and there's several different colored bands of dots. And I asked the question, what do you think that represents? And one person got it right, and it was every dot represented a week of your life. Of the average 90-year life, each dot was a week, and each row of dots was a year. And it highlighted, where you are roughly in terms of your life. And then you think about it, and you think, well, if I was to maybe sacrifice 1 year, doesn't matter whether you're 21 or whether you're 55, if you can sacrifice 1 year of actually breaking down what the rest of your life looks like, and actually committing to something and making a sacrifice for 1 year, and then you look at how many more dots there are to benefit from that, it's crazy to think, well, why wouldn't we do that? But the reason we don't do it is because we're impatient. If we want a 6-pack, we go and go to workout, then we go and look in the mirror and see if it's changed. No, it's going to take a little bit longer than that.
I love some of the analogies here. I mean, Joe Clark is an Olympic gold medalist that I interviewed, who I know. And he talks about his routines, and his level of commitment, and to get to the kind of the gold medal podium is like the whole team that kind of supported him to kind of get there. And and these great athletes have people who keep them accountable, and they have great coaches and mentors. And in the business community, you don't always see that. And I liken the fact that if you're the leader of an organization, even if it's literally a one-man empire, then it's you and what goes on in your head that defines, to a greater or lesser extent, how much success that you have in life. And success is an interesting one, because I've been doing what I do now for over 35 years, which is a long time by anybody's standards. But prior to setting up my own sort of practice back in 2003, I was involved in a large national sort of independent financial advice firm. And there was one individual in that firm who always used to set these kind of sort of goals. These goals were just like out there and brilliant. And he used to sort of then get the rest of us as a team to kind of try and run for these goals. And the amount of conversations I used to say, and I said, it doesn't resonate with me, and it doesn't resonate with half the team. That's because those are your goals, not my goals. And if you're smart, what you'll do is tune into my goals and how that can help the collective here. And I think that's one important message I would say to people. You've got to run for your own reasons. Don't write something down and think, I want to do that, I want to be that, I want to have that because I've read it in a book and everybody else has got it. Is you need to feel comfortable in your own skin. You need to feel comfortable in your own head. Run for your reasons, really. And that's one of the things that I often find when I'm working with clients, is giving them the permission to just be whoever they are. We talked, didn't we, just before jumping on this call, about the Wheel of Life. Now, the Wheel of Life is a little coaching tool, I've got it here quickly in the book, that we get people to score, where they are in terms of their life. So it looks I don't know, pretty much something like that. There we go. You can see it there. So it's one of those things that I say to people, it's about putting the life in lifestyle, because most people have got a plan for when they're dead. Well, that sounds a bit morbid, but they have this last will and testament that says in excruciating detail, often what they want to, happen when they've kicked the bucket, they've taken professional advice on it. And that's, for when they've kicked the bucket. But how many of us really then have a plan for when we're alive? And the answer is that most people don't. And yet all the evidence shows that if you've got one, you take professional advice and share it with somebody that you trust. Statistically, easy for me to say, statistically, you've got almost an 80% chance of achieving it. So why would you not do that? And that's one of the reasons why I talk to people like you, because hopefully somebody's watching this and it empowers them to take the next step, whatever that means to them, to go and do all the things that they want to have.
Yeah, mate, I love that life in lifestyle. I do make a similar comment where I try not to talk about work-life balance. I try and talk about life balance.
Right.
If we say work-life balance, it's already programming that actually work and life is separate. But actually, no, work is life. And if you are good at your work, and you're empowered, you're good at what you do, you enjoy it, all of a sudden, like, you want to work, like, work's great. And make no mistake, I wanted to be retired at 40, and I achieved that about 38 and a half. I was semi-retired. I still did bits and bobs, but I wasn't happy. You got to be careful what you wish for, because I lost my purpose, and I was so depressed for about 3 months. I was just like, what do I do now? Right. There's only so many rounds of golf you can play. Yeah. And the game wasn't getting much better either. So that was bloody frustrating. But, like, you work, the old cliche that once you find purpose, you'll never work another day. Oh, I don't know about that. I still love the occasional sleep in and, all that. But, we're human. But yeah, life balance rather than work-life balance. And I love that, put the life in lifestyle. It's, and you're right. Like, thinking about today, some people say you shouldn't having a secure future, by the way, is a big way we can stop, and knowing what our future looks like prevent mental health illnesses by understanding what our future looks like. So I'm a very big believer in that what does your future look like? What do you need to do to get there? And I mean, I'm talking your speak, mate. I'm sure you do all of this. But for me, like a lot of people say, you need to be able to achieve those goals. You need to, you can't have, one eye on one and one eye on today. Well, actually, I think you can. I actually think it's really important to have a foot in each camp. Like, you need to sacrifice a certain amount to achieve your retirement or whatever it is. But actually, what's going to give me today? What's going to make me happy today? And I think the cultures that search for happiness, like our typical cultures, the Westerners, we don't really get it. Whereas the Easterners, they search for purpose. They search for daily fulfillment.
So what makes people happy then? Because that's an interesting line of thought down there. You've hooked me straight away on that one.
Have you not seen Bruce Almighty? Come on. What does make people happy? Right. Look, everyone's different. But for me, the basics of it is daily fulfillment. So having, and the thing is, like, everyone talks about purpose. I get it. There's so many cliches. We'll talk about resilience and purpose and motivation and all that, blah, blah. Yeah, but just bloody work hard. Like, we'll talk, well, the best way to get started is start 100%. And, we've got to have goals and we've got to dream big. Yeah, dream big, but don't be a bloody dreamer. Make it happen. Yeah. And no one talks about that bit in the middle, that boring bit that's just bloody hard work. And so if you find purpose, to me, doesn't have to be this big holistic, like, oh, my purpose, it could be just like, I don't know, being a good dad. It could be being good at my job, and I own recruitment companies. So, I break the mold in the sense that I try and talk to people into staying in their jobs. Because that's good karma, for starters. Like, they actually trust you then, and they realize that you actually care about them and the right job for them. So then eventually, when they do want to make a jump, or if they're going to recruit, they're going to want to use you. So, it's smart business, really. But I've always talked to people about, well, if you want to leave your job, hang on, why? Have you actually achieved everything you could possibly achieve in that job? Right. Have you given yourself the best opportunity to be the best in that company, or at least your best possible version of yourself in that job? Because if you haven't, why move? You've not achieved everything you could achieve in that job. And you might find that if you do push yourself to achieve more, you might actually bloody enjoy it.
Yeah. I think you're right in terms of, what I mean, a bit like you, we moved down to Devon, where are we, 2.5 years ago now. So I was, sort of 48 at the time, and, toyed with the idea of kind of retiring at that point. So kind of semi-retired. And like yourself, I wasn't walking the golf course, but I was walking the dog. The poor dog was absolutely knackered by 7 weeks in. He was looking at me as if to say, I've had enough. I've had enough of all these long walks in the morning and a coffee and a bacon sandwich on the seafront, and equally so had I, because, as human beings, we're driven and ingrained to do certain things. And I won't deviate into kind of Maslow's theory there, but in terms of like habits, our success is hidden in our daily routine. So, I can remember being a young man, and there were very influential people in my career, and they were very successful. And I used to think I need to be like, Jeff, or I need to be like Malcolm, and it took me a long time, too long, to actually understand I just needed to be me. I didn't need to be Jeff. I didn't need to be Malcolm or my dad. I just needed to be myself and do it my way. And then, understanding that actually be kind to yourself, because if you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, at some point, like you've experienced, your body just goes, hang on a minute. We're stopping one way or another. It's your choice. Do we want to stop at a choice, or I'm going to make you stop, and it might be a permanent thing. So I reframe things about milestones, and I talk to clients about this milestones because it seems to resonate well with people, because I know that a lot of people are out there that have these big scary goals. The trouble with these big scary goals, I find, is working with a lot of people, sometimes it's too scary. And I'm all about having something to, an aspirational, thing in the future that you want. But equally, you need to, break that down into like bite-sized chunks. So, what sort of milestones do you need to do today? So that only for today, even if you fall off the wagon, as it were, sort of what can you get back on the horse and sort of do again tomorrow? What little baby steps can you do that will enable you to get there? Certainly for me, that transformed the way I work, which, by the age of 48, I didn't have to work again. So I now do what I do because I'm passionate about it and I enjoy it, and I don't have to. And there's a slightly different energy involved in it then, isn't there? As you'll know yourself, Tom. But it's how do we get across to people that you can have this success without burning out? What are the key messages that people can take away from this, would you think? If you were to give a dozen points, I don't know.
Yeah, no, all good. So the first thing for me is, who do you want to be? Like, as I said, what do you want to be? What do you want to be committed to being, in the top tier of what you do, or is it something else? And once we have that, we can then frame up, well, what's the commitment? What's the sacrifice we need to make?
Yeah.
It's then about communicating that with our loved ones. So if you've got a partner, if you've got children, if you've got, people in your life you care about, that you like spending time with, and they, without sounding brutal, they put demands on your time.
Yeah.
And the last thing we want to do is have pressures from ourselves in terms of our own purpose and our own drive to become whoever it is we want to be, without actually having the pressures and stresses of other people pulling us to and fro. So it's really important. It's like anything, really. You've got to sit down and have conversations. And if your partner isn't on board with where you want to go, then that's just being a bloody unrealistic. That's the path to unhappiness right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it with whether it be people in my own company or people I've worked with over 20 or 30 years, where it gets to 4:30, 5 o'clock, and the stress levels start rising because they've probably not achieved as much as they would like to have, or they need to have today. And their heart might be in the right place. They genuinely want to be there until 7 o'clock to get as much done as possible. Right. But they also want to be somewhere else, or they need to be somewhere else. And so I often sit down with people and say, well, have you had the conversation with whoever it is you spend time with to say, and it could be your boss, it could be your partner, it could be anyone, to sort of say, right, okay, this is how I see my schedule. This is what I need to do to achieve this. Then they all of a sudden they start buying into it, and then the pressure starts reducing, and the anxiety and the stress starts to reduce, because it's a team. We're not built to be mavericks. We're built to be in a following, in a group, in a clan. And so if you can help people understand what your plan is, happy days. They can help you get there, you know. So it's understanding where you're going, have that communication. The third thing mainly that I see a lot of people, I've designed something called a life map, which is very basic. Sounds ooh, ah, you know, the holy grail. It's not really. It's just a very basic tool, but largely it's a blank spreadsheet where I say, right, write down all your priorities in life, and 9 times out of 10, and most people have more than 10 to 15 priorities in their life. And then you start, okay, can you now give it a rating of, you know, this, that, and the other? And so they start to understand, actually, okay, so these are my priorities. What are the most important to me? Am I actually satisfying these priorities? So there's largely 2 scenarios. You've either got too much and you're trying to satisfy too much, or you've not got enough. So you're not getting enough daily fulfillment because you're literally just being a bit bloody lazy or a bit lost or whatever. And so we then start like talking through all of those priorities and reducing it down to a manageable bite-size amount of priorities in life. Now, for me, the magic number is 3. I've always worked around 3. If I'm true to myself, it's probably 5. Right. Once we start getting too many of these priorities that are important to ourselves, can you imagine that daily sadness or lack of fulfillment or lack of success if we've got all these priorities in our head, the back of our mind, that are important to us, but we're not putting enough time, money, and resources into it. So we're never going to achieve it. So it's a constant revolving feeling of being unsuccessful in life and unfulfilled.
Yeah.
It sounds simple, doesn't it? It's like, it's just what's important to me.
Sabotage then, don't you, really? Because you're starting to feel like a failure because of actually you're not ticking off the boxes.
Yeah. So literally 100% ticking off the boxes, you know, the basics of, I used to be really, I mean, I'm very fortunate. You know, people say that someone's a natural born salesperson. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there are natural born communicators. Right. And so I've always been fortunate to be one of those people where I have conversations with people, I build rapport. And so I've generally done quite well in business because I will never sell something to someone that I don't think they genuinely want or need. And some salespeople don't give a shit, and that's what they sell. But I think they're bad salespeople. I think the way I go is the right way to do it. And in business in general, we're trying to provide a service. Whatever we're doing, essentially, we're all salespeople. We're all trying to provide a service. We're trying to sell something to somebody. And so in the start of my career, I was really sort of cocky with that, really arrogant with that. And so, like, if someone said to me, Tom, you need to have a daily plan, I'd say, oh, bugger off. Like, I'll just do whatever, you know. And I was successful. But if I look back and think, actually, like, if I got to 11 o'clock in the morning and I ticked off a few things, like, oh my God, that daily fulfillment of just literally just ticking something off. You know, you can get apps where you can get, and it makes that bing. Oh, that's nice. It's the simple things in life like that. I've learned the hard way. So important, so important. So yeah, so just to recap, so, you know, who are you, where do you want to go? Talk to the people to make sure that the people around you, to make sure they're on board and they can help you get there. And so that it might be as simple as saying to your partner, on Tuesday nights, don't expect me home for dinner. You know, that's my night, that's my day, I'm going to smash it. But actually on Wednesdays, I'm going to have breakfast with you and I'm going to take kids to school. You know, like, there's that balance. People, I've had my staff come to me and say, oh, I want to work-life balance, because I say to them, are you doing enough? I will never say to them, you need to be at your desk after 5 o'clock, but I will say to them, are you doing enough to be successful? And it's usually, oh, well, you know, I only want to work 9 to 5 because I'm looking for a work-life balance. Balance is give and take.
Okay.
You know, that's balance. Yeah. Everything in life, whether it be your job or whatever, you get what you put in. That's just life, isn't it, really? Yeah. So I think to have a proper balance, you've got to find out what it is that's important to you, set the priorities, and commit to it and smash it. And you're probably going to revisit those priorities every 2 or 3 months, maybe monthly, depends on how driven you are.
Yes. That's what I tend to do, is like have like a number of key themes that I'll follow throughout the year. but I'll probably identify 2 or 3 that I'll focus on for like 3 months and like hit those, and then I'll move on to the next one, hit those, because then it's easier to keep the plate spinning on the ones that you've already attacked, and then inch by inch it's cinch, but yard by yard it's hard, so it's that little sort of mantra that goes through my head that, if you just get it going, it's much easier. Then the inertia just keeps it moving, doesn't it?
It does, mate.
Whatever area of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I made the comment earlier that like a lot of people have 2 or 3 sessions with me and they're just not committed. My personal trainer, I just put a video on LinkedIn this morning actually about how committed are you, and commitment to me is just doing what you say you're going to do. And isn't it awful that if we say to someone, I'm going to do something, and so therefore then all of a sudden, if you don't do that, you're going to be letting someone down. Largely we do it because we don't want to let them down, or we don't want to be seen to be someone who lets people down. But it's like being an employee. I've got to do it because my boss expects me to do it. But actually, how many times do we say things we're going to do for ourselves and we just don't do it because there's no accountability? So we're constantly letting ourselves down. I think that's a big problem, the major problem with people that go from employee to business owner. There's no accountability. Right. There's no one there saying, you need to start work at 8:30. You need to do this, this, and this. There's no one managing them. There's no one like setting deadlines. A big problem, and I found it massively this year, setting deadlines. If you're feeling unsuccessful, if you're feeling like you're not moving quick enough, set deadlines on everything you do. Put pressure on yourself to get it done quicker. You might not do it right the first time. That's fine. But at least you can revisit it, do it better the next time. But if you don't set deadlines, it'll get to 4 o'clock and you've achieved bugger all.
So you say, talking about employees going into the kind of business owner marketplace and, that accountability. So they need a bit more of a oomph in them, let's say. But what about the other end of the spectrum? What about the business owner who's absolutely cooking on gas, but actually is not giving himself permission or herself permission to actually sort of take time off and be present with the family or be present with your partner and not feel guilty about it?
It's simple, mate. It comes right back to that first point. Who do they want to be?
Right.
And once you are true to yourself with that, so it's interesting. So there's a podcast called the High Performance Podcast. I don't know if you've heard of it. They the sports personalities and all. And what I find really interesting is, some of those people, whether they be entrepreneurs in business or sports people, athletes, all of them have sacrificed a huge amount of time and certain life things we take for granted that they just have literally just sacrificed. And they've got a partner who supports them through that. But it's interesting that I think majority of people who achieve the pinnacle of whatever it is they're doing, they accept the fact that there's a level of obsession, there's a level of stress, anxiety, just beating yourself up, being your own worst critic, all those things we say we shouldn't be. They're doing it, and they're not necessarily having a good time doing it. They hate losing with a passion. We say failure is important. You ask Steven Gerrard, he hates failure. He knows it's important because you can't always win. But do you think he necessarily talks about Istanbul when he lifted the Champions League trophy? Or do you think he thinks about when he slipped over at Chelsea and lost the title? Yeah. He thinks about when he slipped over, because that's the mentality of that elite. Yeah. But do we really want to be that? Because that's great if you do, but you've got to commit. So if you're going to commit to that, you've got to accept the fact that you're not going to be able to do the things that your neighbor's doing. You're not going to be able to do the things that your schoolmates are doing because they're on a different path to you. Right. I think that's the important thing, is who do we want to be, and then commit to that and understand the sacrifice. And then we can and if it's that, okay, I just want to be a successful business owner. Okay, let's break that down. What does that look like? How do we, with every business plan, it's like, well, we start with the end and we work back. I'm sure it is with your work. Yep. And it's like, well, how do we get there? Let's break it down. And we break it down weekly, monthly, daily, all of that. I always build in downtime into a schedule, because I'm not a robot. I believe for me, life balance is being able to wake up on a Tuesday morning or whatever morning and just go, you know what, I just can't be bothered. You know, I'm just gonna, you know, I'm just gonna just take the morning off with my partner or whoever it is I'm with, even myself, whatever. So to me, that's amazing to be able to do that. But if I didn't build in some downtime into my schedule, where do I get that time back?
Right.
So I'll just build in blocks of time. It could be usually afternoons because I like to achieve things in the morning. So there'll be a couple of afternoons where I've just blocked out time for anything. And I strictly try not to put work stuff in there so that if I want to have those moments, you know, surprise someone, go and visit your grandmother or whatever at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you've got the time to do it. But that takes sacrifice, doesn't it? And it might mean that sometimes you've got to work till 8 o'clock at night. But that does, I think a lot of people think that like work balance is, you know, that 9 to 5 and then you get the life outside of all of that. But actually that's not balance. And that's actually setting a strict time frame. That's not really like that work-life balance. To me, that's the opposite.
Yeah, I kind of relate to this because when I grew up, my father was like director of 2 or 3 different companies at different points in my childhood. So I don't really remember dad too much in my kind of early childhood years. You know, thankfully as a teenager I do, and certainly when I left school I worked with him before he died suddenly, and he taught me a huge amount and got a big load of respect for him. But when I had children, it was one of those things of saying, well, you know, when there is a sports day, I will be there. You know, and if there's this going on. So I think one of the things I've always been proud of as a father is that I've, you know, more often than not, and I mean a lot, you know, I've been there for them in terms of like, you know, school times. If you're going to be there and you say you're going to pick them up, then do it, because, you know, children spell love Time.
Yeah,
It's the time
perfect.
that you spend with them that really matters. And you know, I've got 3 kids, and you know, sort of, you know, thankfully I've been able to have flexibility in my career to be able to, you know, be there and do that, and you know, sort of get to see them when they're performing and things like that. So I think it's, you know, again, as you say, that work-life balance is, you know, we talk to people about this, saying, well, what does your ideal life look like? You know, and there's your wheel of life. You know, if you feel like you're not supporting your family or your partner enough at the moment, what little baby step changes can you make on a daily basis that will get you closer towards that ideal? Because you won't get there overnight, but little baby steps along the way will get you there. And every time you take a little baby step forward, do you know what? It empowers you, doesn't it? You just have that feeling of, you know, achievement and accomplishments, and that's a different energy to one where you're beating yourself up because shit, you haven't been able to pick up the kids from school today, or shit, you haven't been able to get to the gym today, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, mate. Good on you, buddy. Good on you for, you know, doing that and, you know, valuing that time with the kids, because I learned the hard way with that. You know, I love my kids and I used to coach them at football, and I'd try and get home at like 3, 4 o'clock 2 nights a week. So I'd be ready and I'd pick, rather than just meet them at the footy club, I'd come home, get changed with them, take them with me. You know, like those little things to me were really important. But having said that, I was so driven in business, that, you know, there were times I should have been there and I wish I had have been there more. Um, these are the things that make us happy, you know, the times we have with our loved ones. And to me, that's a true life balance, is being, you can, it's proven. I've done it, and loads of people I know have done it. They've been really, really successful. I'm sure you're doing it. You know, you got to a point of retirement early. You decided actually, you know, you want to get back on the game. You know, you can achieve that success for you, whatever success is for you. You can achieve that and have those lovely things in life as well.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think it's just, somebody made the analogy once about, you know, imagine a horse race, you know, and you know, you got 3 horses that cross the finish line, first, second, and third. And the winner, you know, wins an obscene amount of money. The second place gets, I don't know, half the, you know, winnings of the first place, and the third place gets, I don't know, whatever it might be, you know, 20%. And you know, it was saying, you know, is the horse that came in third, you know, is it 5 times worse than than the one that sort of came in first? And the answer is no. It's just that the horse that crossed the finish line was just a nose ahead. It was just a nose ahead. It was just that little bit better focus. And I think as humans in business or your careers or whatever you do, just being a little bit more focused, you can have exponential returns on that just extra little bit of focus that you can get there. Just finally, in closing, we've talked a little bit about who do you want to be, commitment, sacrifice, having this life map, but the second part of the title is how do you do this without sort of burning out? So just the final couple of minutes really, sort of, Tom, and any thoughts on that? I mean, you've obviously got your own regime, but just generally with working with people, what are the the things that people can do to stop themselves sort of burning out here?
So unfortunately at the moment, in fact, just life in general, we're so distracted and we compare ourselves to people we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to. We lose our way, we lose our focus, we lose our commitment, we just lose our way largely. And so I think, as I said, burnout doesn't have to be hospitalized. It doesn't have to be heart attack. It can just be emotional and mental burnout in terms of like depression or anxiety or unhappiness, sadness. You mentioned earlier, a couple of months ago, you felt shit. November for me, mate, when we went into the second lockdown in the UK, I got to about halfway through it. Oh man, I was trying to explain it. It wasn't depression. It was just sadness.
Yes.
And I was doing all the right things. And this is the thing, I think, is that we can do all the right things, but we can still get hit by a bloody bus,
Yeah.
That's just life, isn't it?
Well, that's you being human, isn't it?
So for me, how do you avoid it? It's about understanding what it takes to achieve what you're trying to achieve, but in a manageable way. Right. So it's the same. I keep drawing it back to say, let's say, you want to lose weight, or you want to get a six pack, or get bigger muscle, or you should change your body, whatever, we need to look at that over a period of time and understand how long that's going to take. Yeah. Not just how long did it take my neighbor, or how long did it take my partner, or how long, like that's forget all that crap. Yeah. Like, how long will it take me? Because if it's going to take going to the gym 6 days a week and not eating chocolate for 6 months, that's not going to make me happy, because I love a bit of chocolate in the or I can only go to the gym 3 times a week, and I love a bit of chocolate, and I love the occasional pint. So, okay, it might take you 2 years. Right. And I think that's the important thing, mate, is it's understanding what the end game looks like, and then breaking it down and understanding how long that's going to take, what it looks like, how I can have all of those lovely things in there, those priorities in there, that I can spend time doing things that are important to me. God, the amount of people, my sister's one of them, she's not on LinkedIn, so I can say this. But she says things like, I don't have time to go for a walk, or we can't save. And, I love her to bits, with all my heart. And I would love to be able to help her with that. But if the person isn't going to see it, if they're not going to do the right things and say the right things, and largely you mentioned at the start, it's about mindset. Everyone says mindset is everything. Yeah, kind of. Mindset's great. It's like saying dream big or don't be a dreamer. Mindset's great, but you've got to action it.
Yes.
Yes. So how do you not burn out, mate? It's just about managing things in a manageable way, not driving ourselves to achieve something that someone else has achieved that might not be actually attainable for us.
Yes. And that's where I said earlier about, whatever you do, do it in a way that you're comfortable in your own skin, or you're comfortable in your own head, whatever that means to you, because you've got to go, for me, I think you've got to go where the energy is. So, in my mastermind group, I was astonished when I said, this is how I'm feeling. I don't know why I'm feeling like this, but I'm absolutely, burnt out. It wasn't the words I used, but that's essentially what it was. When we look back and analyze it now, we can see that genuinely it was screen fatigue, it was Zoom fatigue, that, it was just too many meetings, not enough breaks. We changed my diary so that I've got like half an hour or an hour between each meeting, and what a difference that makes, because I can go and chase the dog around the garden, or I can just look out my window here and look at the beautiful cruise ships out in Labrador Bay, you know, sort of thing. You know, so it's one of those things that you've got to learn to be kind to yourself, and, you know, do what you want to do what resonates with you. So my wife, she loves walking, right? So she thinks that actually a great thing for me is to go walking. Now, I mean, there's tension in our relationship because I prefer to be on a bike, you know, so she prefers to walk, I prefer to get muddy on my mountain bike, you know. So but it's about going where you feel it rejuvenates you. So walking's great for her, and I will do that, but equally I'll try and find time in to go have a thrash around on the mountain bike and get muddy, or jump in the, you know, the gym and sort of throw some weights about. So I would say to people, you know, listen to what your own body is telling you, listen to what your own mind is telling you, because no one knows you better than yourself.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I've learned, is like, people say, oh, do this, it worked for me, brilliant, you know. Well, that worked for them, it doesn't necessarily mean it'll work well for you, but give it a go. But try and find things that kind of sort of really sort of amplify with you. You tend to know these things from a gut instinct point of view, don't you?
You do, mate. You do. And unfortunately, the flip side of that is people convince themselves that they can't change, whether it's because of the limits we were put on us by our parents or the people around us, teachers. Back in our time as in kid, like I know so many kids that would, poor buggers, they just like had ADHD or they were autistic, but they were just considered to be naughty kids.
Yes.
Or expelled or whatever, you know. And the parents didn't even get it either. So times have changed, but in a lot of good ways. But actually, you know, there's a lot of distractions as well with social media and instant gratification and all of that, really, isn't there? For me, I think one thing I just want to touch on to maybe finish is habits. We used to say habits take 30 days. So if you were going to quit smoking back in the day, they'd say, oh yeah, a habit. It's not a habit until you've done it for 30 days. It's proven now it's 90 days, approximately between 60 and 90 days it takes for something to become a habit. Now, I think the problem with us, because we are distracted and because we see things and filters on Instagram and everything, you know, we want it now because we can get most things now. Netflix, bang,
yes,
binge. Tonight I could watch 15 series of something, you know what I mean? Like right now, whereas previously, you know, you had to wait 7 days for the next episode. You know, so we are really, really impatient nowadays. And so we try to do new things, and it's a great time to talk about this with New Year's resolutions. So how many times do people say, I'm going to do this next year, new me, and then come February, it's too hard because the results haven't come yet. Yeah. And largely, I think that's because they're not understanding that you need to make it a habit. 50 odd percent of the things we do on a daily basis are habits. Yeah. So what's the best way to start a new habit or make a habit stick? Tack it on to another habit that you already do. Yeah. So if you brew your coffee in the morning and you're sitting there waiting for it, what do? I do some stretching or whatever it is, whatever habit it is you're trying to do, you know, build it in. I've been doing it this year. One of the biggest things is stretching for me this year. Like I've always loved going to the gym. I played semi-professional football back in the day. Never really looked after my body. So I now build in stretching into everything I do. Like when I'm at the gym, whenever I'm exercising, I build it in because I'm there. I'm going to just sit there on my phone in between sets. No, I'll just do a bit of stretching. That's the easiest thing to do is build some, you know, habits tack them onto existing habits, and that will help you. But give yourself time. And I think that will really help with the burning out problem as well, is giving yourself time, and don't be too impatient. Just don't expect yourself to learn something new really quickly. It takes about 90 days to see results and to become a habit.
I read a book, some great points there, and it really resonates with, I forget the name of the book now. I'm looking around my desk here. It was written by Dr. Chatterjee.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
And he talks about
Feel Good podcast, isn't it?
Pardon me?
The Feel Good podcast, I think he does.
Yeah, that's it. But he talks about having sort of daily health snacks, and absolutely that, bolt it onto another habit that's already sort of there. Okay. And actually, if you just do this, but the one thing that really floored me is because, you know, people champion CV, don't they? You know, cardiovascular fitness and strength training and all the rest of it. But the one thing that has more impact on your mental well-being, your physical well-being, just your blood pressure, absolutely everything, was meditation. of some sort or another. Now, that could be like, you know, you kind of whatever, woo, woo, boo, I can't even say the words, boo hoo, woo hoo, whatever it is, you know, sort of out there sort of thing. But for me, I've got an Apple Watch, and it just like sort of tells me to kind of breathe. I do that naturally anyway, but it tells me to kind of breathe, you know, these breathing exercise, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon. I thought, oh, I'll give this a go. And there's a breathing exercise that in his book he talks about, and I do that. And I kid you not, I cannot believe what difference that has made to my mind and my body. I just, those 5 minute health snacks of just doing that sort of breathing exercise, I feel like, you know, I don't know, everything's all been joined up in the right way in my body, and I just feel like I've got so much more energy. And, you know, as a Western country, I don't think we really tap into that enough.
No, we don't, mate. You're so right. That's amazing. Just those little things, man. Those little things can just literally change your life, can't they?
Yeah. Well, I'm mindful we could talk probably for hours and hours, because there's little
Yeah.
golden nuggets, you know, in amongst all of this. But if people want to reach out to you, Tom, and sort of learn more or connect with you, and, you know, possibly even sort of work with you, how's it best for them to go about doing that?
I'm on LinkedIn pretty much every day. So if they want to contact me on LinkedIn, or they can go to lifeaccordingtomurph, MURF.com.
Brilliant. Thank you. Whilst we're in this kind of sort of pandemic as well, part of the thing that I'm sort of putting out there, if you'd like a copy of the #1 best-selling book that I wrote called Dream It, Planet, Live It, then if you go to the website dreamitplanetliveitbook.com/offer, then you can get a copy of this book here, literally for just £1. We've got limited stocks at that sort of level, but it's just part of my giving back to people. And this thing retails on Amazon at £10.99 at the moment. So if you want to do that, and it helps you, and it's some brilliant exercises in here. It takes 2 hours to kind of read, but literally after the end of each chapter are little exercises that get you to think differently. And, you know, this time of the year, you know, New Year's resolutions, as Tom's just said, it gets your brain working. But more importantly, connect with somebody like Tom, you know, get somebody who is a mentor or coach who's going to hold you accountable. You know, I have a guy who's in my mastermind group, and the fact that I have a call with him, you know, on a regular basis, I've probably achieved more in the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years by as a virtue of having him as my wingman, versus anything else probably in my professional career. Just because I know, shit, you know, I've got a call with Charlie coming up, and I know Charlie's going to ask me some challenging questions, saying to me, Karl, you told me last time we met this was really important to you, so what have you done about it? And I know if I say nothing, Charlie, he's going to then challenge me whether that really was important. So I would say surround yourself with good people. Tom's a great guy. Reach out to him. Equally, if you want to connect with me, I'd be happy to connect with you as well. So thanks for watching. And Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm just about to be wiped out by the South Devon sun here, swinging around and blitzing in. So we've timed that to perfection. Any final sort of comments from you at all, sir?
Not at all. Just thank you so much for having me, Karl. I really appreciate it. It sounds like everyone needs a Charlie in their life, doesn't it?
It's a great guy. So if you want a connection, let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, Karl.
Thanks, bud. Take care.
Take care, mate.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.